Hello, it is time. Story time. Miss Jones's story time. So, I am going to be reading chapter 2 of The Key Hunters, The Mysterious Moonstone. And if you're wondering why this shirt is on, this is just a leftover from the photo I took today for Wacky Tacky Wednesday. Anyway, so chapter 1, we were introduced to Miss Crowley. Apparently, one of our teachers, or the librarian in the school, is actually missing, and we've discovered. And, oh, sorry, the lipstick too. I just thought about that. We've discovered also that there is a hidden area within the library. So, chapter 2 seems to be just a few pages. Let's see. So, I might, just depending on the video, I might actually do chapter 2 and 3. So, here we go. I told you there's something weird going on, Cleo said. She began tugging at the books. Help me look. Miss Crawley said, literature no longer used, Evan said. Every second you waste thinking about something is a second you miss doing something, Cleo said. Then Evan remembered. Kind of see a light bulb going off there. He charged to the front of the library. A poster hung on the wall behind the desk. The heading read, Your Friend Dewey. On the left side stood a cartoon kid with big glasses. Down the right side was a list of different Dewey Decimal numbers. He knew the Dewey Decimal System was the way libraries organized their books. Librarians were careful that every book got numbered and shelved properly. Evan had seen the poster plenty of times before. Near the bottom was a section called Literature. Evan read that section closely until he found it. 804. Literature. Code no longer used. Literature no longer used. Follow me, Evan said. He led Cleo to the last aisle of the library. Okay, so that's the photo that's at the top of chapter 2. We don't have any other pictures, it's just that one. So, on the top shelf sat an old leather bound book. The number 804 was printed on the book's spine. The title read Literature, Elements and Genre from Antiquity to Modern Day. That book looks like that book looks so boring, Cleo said. What does antiquity even mean? It means the olden days, he said. Modern day to the guy who wrote that book is probably antiquity to us, Cleo said. Just help me, he said. Cleo laced her fingers and boosted Evan up. Evan grabbed the highest shelf he could. His fingers barely reached the top edge of the book. He curled his fingers around it and pulled. The heavy book tipped forward. Evan thought it was going to crush them. He leaped. So this is where we are. And what do you think is going to happen next? Ooh. He leaped out of the way, and they tumbled to the ground. What did you do that for? Cleo said, rubbing her shin through her pink tie-dye soccer sock. Evan didn't answer. He was too busy staring. Where a wall of dusty shelves used to be, a secret door slid open. So I think I got this a little mixed up. That was the end of chapter 2, by the way. And now we're looking at that key. That was on chapter one's page again. But anyway, um, yeah, same key. So in chapter 1, we were introduced to Miss Crowley, and she's apparently searching for something. And the librarian is missing. And we notice a key around Miss Crowley's neck. So Evan has now figured out a key point here. So now we're going to go ahead and read chapter 3 because it seems like we have a little bit more time. So Evan looked down and a dimly lit stairway. We should get the custodian, he said. We've wasted enough time, Cleo said. Miss Crowley needs our help. Cleo and Evan stepped onto the first stone stair. Their footsteps echoed. That's right, Miss Crowley disappeared suddenly. The air felt cold. Suddenly, a sliding noise came from behind them. The door! Evan cried out, but it was too late. The bookcase slid shut. What should we do? Evan said. He searched for a lever that might reopen the door. I guess we take the stairs, Cleo said. Are you nuts? Evan said. There could be trolls down there, or evil clowns with vampire fangs. Don't be silly, Cleo said, starting down the steps. As they neared the bottom, a warm light glowed ahead of them. They stepped into the room, and Evan sucked in a tiny breath. The school library, 42 steps above them, Evan had counted, was nothing compared to this one. Bigger than the gymnasium, this library was packed with books of all sizes and colors. Wooden shelves trimmed in brass stretched from floor to ceiling. Balconies, rolling ladders, and spiral staircases allowed readers to reach any book they wanted. At the back of the library, over a stone fireplace, hung a tapestry that showed an image of an open book. Several people swirled out of the book in a sea of colorful letters. The fire's lit, Evan said, grabbing Cleo's wrist. Miss Crowley couldn't have built a fire this quickly. Maybe someone else is here, Cleo said. Let's look around. Hiding would be smarter, Evan said. Cleo ignored him. As they walked, Evan stared at all the books. He saw ghost stories, fantasies, sports stories, tales of adventure, and more. He wanted to open one of the books to see what was inside, but each had a lock on the edge, like a fancy diary. Look, Cleo said. A brown book with a red ribbon between the pages sat on a table. That page had no other picture, so there's nothing for you to see. I'll show you the picture before I read, so you can kind of see what we're getting ready to get into. The key that had been around Miss Crowley's neck was sticking out of the open lock. The title was printed across the cover, The Case of the Mysterious Moonstone. What is it? Evan asked. It's a book, Cleo said. Evan rolled his eyes. I know that, but of all the books in the library, why is this one out? If Miss Crowley was around, she'd be able to tell us, Cleo said. If Miss Crowley was around, she'd tell us to go back to our seats, Evan said. Cleo looked past Evan. Hey, what's that? Against the wall lay a book cart. It was turned on its side. One of the shelves was dented, and a leg was bent. The cart was sparkly and purple. Miss Hillard is here, Cleo said. This cart doesn't mean Miss Hillard's here, Evan said. An envelope was tucked between the bars of the book cart. Cleo took the envelope and opened it. The words were printed in purple ink. Cleo read it aloud. Librarians speak in hushed voices of a magical library that sweeps readers off to different worlds. I never imagined the legends were true, or that one would be right here beneath my school. If you have found this note, I am trapped somewhere between the covers of these enchanted books. To find me, travel through these stories and help give each one the ending it deserves. Fail, and you will meet the same fate as me. Succeed, and you will discover wonders beyond your dreams. Always look for the key that will move you forward on your journey. I've left clues along the way. Just look for my favorite color. Signed, Miss Sandy Hillard, Librarian. P.S. If this is Evan, go get help. The perils are too great, the challenges are too risky, and you are too fragile. I'm not fragile, Evan said. Cleo held back her laughter. You kinda are, she said. But do you think Miss Hillard is really trapped inside one of these books? Evan righted Miss Hillard's book cart. It wobbled on its bent leg. Maybe. Maybe the case of the mysterious Moonstone has some answers. I don't see how a book can offer us answers, Cleo said. Do you realize what you just said? Evan asked. Cleo shrugged. I look up everything on the internet. Are you ready to open the book? Evan said. What kind of question is that? Cleo said. It's just a book. She reached across the table and opened the case of the mysterious Moonstone. Letters burst from the pages of the book like 1,000 crazy spiders. They tumbled in the air around them and began to spell words. The words became sentences, the sentences paragraphs. Before long, they could barely see, and then everything went black. So, we now have a picture above chapter 4, and that's the end of this particular grouping of books, or reading to say. I'll read chapter 4 next. Interesting. Can't wait to see what happens after the black. Bye.